What's going on, everybody? James Zhang here, and today I got a question for you. Have you ever wanted to become a better speaker, a compelling speaker in your network marketing business, in your life, wherever that it is, but you have concerns, you have fears, you struggle with what to say, you are self conscious, you have limiting beliefs, and all that? Well, today I'm going to submit to you a foolproof presentation formula that has brought me from somebody that literally was so shy I couldn't even order food at a restaurant myself to now being now speaking at stages all around the world, and including just recently to probably 70,000 plus people virtually all around the world at Eric Warrior's GoPro stage. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to like this. And if you're not subscribed, they put this plus all these other cool replays for mentorship on my personal YouTube. So go to there and let's dive into this. But let me start with a story before I get into this formula. And when I tell you how bad of a speaker I was, I literally remember the first time I tried to even get a microphone in my hand, and it was just to say my name. I almost forgot my name. But what changed was I remember in some of my first network marketing trainings, my mentors taught me this. They said, James, he or she that holds the pen makes all the money. He or she that holds a pen makes all the money. Now, that means a trainer. That means someone that knows your craft enough to give it to someone else. But it also meant a speaker. And I realized a couple of things. I realized that the people on the stage typically were the top money earners. I'm like, all right, if you do what they do, you're going to make what they make. But I also, more than just the money, is I wanted to gain that confidence. I wanted to be able to convey impact. I realized that communication and presentation and speaking, while it's not necessary in network marketing, you can always leverage tools and stuff like that. I thought to myself, if I could become a more powerful speaker, wouldn't that make it a lot easier in my life? So I started to study the craft, and what I'm going to unveil to you today has been a 15-year obsession. Lots of coaches, lots of mentors, lots of failures. You're not going to get pro overnight, but I believe with the formula I'm going to give to you today, you're going to get confident enough that in your team trainings, if your company asks you to be on stage, if you're doing any single type of presentation that's out there, you will feel confident enough to be able to deliver something that will be better than 95+% of everyone else out there. If you would like that formula, put a me in the comments below. In fact, I'm already doing part of that formula as we speak. Trippy, right? I know. Well, let's get into this. When you think about any presentation, this could be talking about a product, talking about the business. This could be talking about a personal development topic. This could be anything. This could be a Facebook Live. This could be content. There's a couple parts to this that if you prepare, you will be able to know where to go and always land on a good place. So here, before we even get into the details of any presentation, here's a couple things that you want to think about immediately. Okay. Number one, think about what are you trying to convey? You begin with the end in mind. So if you're preparing a speech, for example, as we speak right now, we are preparing to do a masterclass at a company conference, and we're going to be talking about promoting events. So when I'm thinking about what are we going to talk about, I think to myself, what do I want to make sure the audience leaves with? What is success? Define the end result. You see, most people think a good presentation is sounding nice and making people laugh, and all that's great. But you know what a great presentation is? An effective presentation is one where at the end of what you do, people do something different. It's the actions that are taken from what you say in order to generate a result. So, how do you get that? You begin with that end in mind. So, think to yourself, what would success from somebody that listens to this talk mean and look like? Does that make sense? Put end result in the comments below if you're still with me. So, start with the end in mind. Okay. What else do we define? Well, I also define who am I speaking with? Who am I speaking with? Powerful presentations are not cookie cutter, blanket statement. I hope somebody just hears this and they get something out of it. An effective presentation is one where you are speaking to one person. You know who you're speaking to, you know who the audience is. In fact, you can tell the difference of an expert speaker versus one that's an amateur because the expert, they're the ones that work the room. If you're in an actual audience, they're the ones that connect more. Have you noticed the ones that are really effective as a communicator are the ones that when they're speaking to you, it feels like, even though you're in a room, it feels like they're speaking right to you. Powerful presentations are talking about one person. And the way that you talk to one person is you imagine who that person is. So, for sake of example, I know that for this conversation, my primary audience are network marketers, people that want to grow, people that aspire to get to the top 1%. And also, my audience is a faith based audience typically. So, knowing that, and they might feel a little bit stuck in some things, I put myself into the shoes of that person and I'm thinking, how do I help them delimit themselves? Does that make sense? Put a yes in the comments if it does. So if you know that, plug in your audience member for your content, for your presentation, for your speaker, and think about that one person and who that is. And if you do, you will find that you're going to be able to communicate a lot more effectively because the reality is presentation is back and forth. A presentation that's effective is one where you're able to have a conversation. That's how, if you notice, I hope that when you hear me, those that do listen, that align with my message, it feels like, man, it's just, we're just going back and forth like this, right? So we're literally having a conversation. I'm not trying to act, I'm not trying to put on a show. I'm literally having a conversation like if we sat down next to each other and we were to walk through these different types of things, but it's too many people. Okay. So know what the end result is, know who you're speaking to. And then the final piece is this: know your title. I know your title. The title is something I typically think about towards the end. I fiddle around. In fact, even right before I went live on this, I had another title, but then I was thinking, well, what do I actually want to deliver? And the title is something that captures the point. All right. And I'm not going to go super heavy into effective titles because it kind of matters. It doesn't really. I'm going to talk more about the meat of the content. But if you just want one tip on a good title, think if you're your person and you saw that, would you be engaged to want to listen more? So today's title is the Foolproof Presentation Formula. You look at that and you're like, that's kind of nifty. James, how do I get a good title? Simple answer. Use something like ChatGPT and you can ask, hey, here's a presentation I'm making about X. Give me 10 titles that I can use that are captivating, right? So you can do that. But ultimately, you want to get that mindset down on what presents a good title. Okay, so we have the pre-setup of an actual topic, of an actual talk, of a presentation. Now let's get into the actual format of how do you outline a good presentation. Good presentations are intentional. Good presentations have a structure to it. You can follow the storyline. It doesn't just happen randomly. Most people are not that good at speaking, right? I had to learn that there's an art and there's a method to the madness. And what I've realized is there are 5 major points in a format of a powerful, compelling presentation. This could be a 5-minute talk, a 30-minute talk, a 5-hour talk. It doesn't matter. They all follow these 5 frameworks. If you're ready for these 5, put a 5 in the comments below. All right. Number 1, it starts with a powerful hook. Okay, the first aspect to any powerful presentation is a powerful hook. Where a hook is an engaging question or statement that gets people to lean in. Remember, we're in a popcorn microwave society now where people are scrolling all the time. People turn off their brain. People just like scroll past things. So you need a scroll stopper. You need an attention grabber. This is important because if they're not leaning in with interest yet, you have to spend the first part of your presentation convincing them why they should listen to you. So it's even better is if you start with a captivating hook that stops them in their track. And if you notice, I started mine with a question. I like doing questions. I started this presentation with a question like, have you ever wanted to become a great speaker, but you struggled with knowing what to say? You were self conscious and you felt like you always shot yourself in the foot. Do you guys see how that works? And right off the bat, for most people, that's a hook that I position the problem that my presentation is going to solve. So you're going to lean in and you're like, that's me. I've been there. Huh. Okay. What does this guy have to say? I'm telling you, this one piece, if you just added it to any content you make, any presentation you do, will automatically set you apart from else. I'm in a Kingdom Business course, and I was one of the leads for this course, and I gave this formula. And one of the students there took this formula and he became the best presenter in the entire region out of like over 100 students. And it started because there was a hook. Okay. So think to yourself, even before you get into the content, what's a question, a statement, something that can stop people? It's relevant to your point so that you can get people's attention on that. Let's say you're in the wellness business. All right. What's a good hook? Have you ever felt like your body just let you down? You turned a certain age and you ate something and it felt like for some reason it just wasn't burning off the same way. And you tried everything under the sun to burn that fat, but it just was not getting off. Oh, by the way, if you're into wellness, if you heard that hook, who here would lean in with that? Putting me in the comments, you're like, yeah, that's me. Okay, what about this? All right. So that's what a hook is. So a question, an engaging statement, and just think what is something that can be relevant to the audience. Okay. So part number one is that. Part number two, part number two is the promise. Is the promise. Our goal in speaking is to be able to help them with the objective that you talked about. So here, I will give them my promise up front. Why? People want to know what to expect. You're kind of calling the shot out, right? Why should I listen to you for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 seconds, 30 minutes, whatever that it is? Well, because if you listen till the end, you will get this. So, for example, I'll just use this presentation one more time. Remember, I had the hook. And then I said, well, if that is you, I promise you that by the end of this conversation, you will walk out with the foolproof presentation formula that anybody can do, where you will automatically be in the top 5% of presenters on anything. If you'd like to hear that more, stay tuned. Do you see that right away? Hook and promise. You got their attention, you give them an upfront expectation. Now they're like, oh my gosh, I am in. I know what I'm looking for. Give it to me. I know that right now, as I'm saying this, some of your minds are being blown. Why? You're like, I see this now. Think about any great communicator. Isn't this what they do? They manage expectations, they give you a promise, they're compelling. They draw you in, not because of just their personality. You see, I'm not a funny guy necessarily. If you have humor on your side, great. But I'm not like an actor. I'm not a comedian. I make fun of myself, but that's not my strength. But what I can do is I can package and deliver value for the audience. And you can do that too, because you can actually formulate this. Okay. So here's the format, 5 steps in here, right? Hook, promise. All right. Now that you have that, the next part is share a story. Facts tell, stories sell. Okay, if you're still with me, put story in the comments below. One of the most engaging and compelling ways to be able to deliver any message is to have the art of the story. I can give you all the nuts and bolts, But what really puts the flavor and the color, makes it memorable, is when you share a story that accentuates the point. So, what I like to do is after I give the hook and then I give the promise, then I will start with some story. It could be your personal testimony, it could be a different story, but it just accentuates and emphasizes the topic itself. So, if you see what today, I started with my personal testimony, right? I talked about how I sucked in the beginning. I talked about my mentors. I talked about what I learned from them. And then I'm going to get into the actual topic itself. Okay. The heart is super, super important. All right. Here's a side free bonus tip. This is free anyway, but here's a major tip. I learned this next tip I'm going to give to you from some of the best presentation trainers in the world. They coach alongside with Grant Cardone presentations, and they are phenomenal at this. They have a framework. There's 4 steps to it. It's heart, head, hand, heart. Okay? Say that again. Heart, head, hand, heart. Every great presentation starts with the heart. You engage the heartstrings. You engage people emotionally. That's what a story does. And then you start to deliver the head knowledge. That's your facts. That's your stuff. You also give them something in their hand. You give them practicals. You give them to do so they can take action on it. And then you want to end with heart again. You want to engage them emotionally once again, a compelling reason to take action. You'll see as I lay out the rest of this foolproof presentation formula, how this will be embedded into those. Okay. So the hook, the promise, the story. Now we get into the actual presentation content. Isn't it interesting, by the way? You see, what I think most people think, what I thought a great presentation was I needed the content to be rich. I needed to know what to say. I needed to be very smart. I need to have all the facts and the details and all that. And of course, there needs to be good stuff in your message. But it's probably more 20% of the importance to it. The more important part is getting people to say why they even need to listen to this and ensuring that they actually take an action at the end. The content itself is not that tough. It's the other stuff that we're packaging this around that makes you compelling. But there is a method to the madness with some type of presentation too. Generally, for me, it depends on what kind of a presentation you're doing. But if I'm just doing a topic, this is how this is actually, I do any of these lives. This is how it seems like, how does James just come on and just talk? Like, and he lands it, right? It's because I follow this format. So for most general presentations, you can break it down like this. It might be a little bit different depending on your format, but for most purposes, this is fine. In the actual content, I outline 3 major points at least. All right, have an outline and have at least 3 of them. Sometimes you might need more. For example, for this one, I actually have 8 points. Okay, but you want to label your points. Start with at least 3 though. Okay, if you have 3 points, you can go on for 30 minutes. Like that's more than enough. But let's just say it's 3 points. Outline the 3 topics, and these are important because these are your guideposts. So let's say you're talking about wellness and you're talking about how to get your dream body. And I'm going to have 3 major points. You want to drink enough water, you want to eat enough protein, and you might incorporate some supplements, right? Like, let's say that's 3 points. Perfect. Have those 3 points outlined. And within each of these points, give some details to accentuate that point. Okay. Give some clarification so that people can walk out with an understanding of what that point is all about. So if you see right now, I am literally emphasizing this with my point of how to outline your points. Trippy, right? It's kind of inception right now. You're like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So what did I do? I stated the point, but I'm also now giving clarity and I'm telling you and giving you examples, giving you points. Okay? You might even think about a story in this. Here's a quote you might want to write down. Change the game for me where I didn't feel like I got run on. By the way, side note, but it's related to this. Be honest. Does anyone ever feel like you have trouble continuing to talk and you forget where you're at and then you just get stuck without knowing how to stop? Anyone else like that? This next quote will help you stop at a good place. Okay? Here it is. Never make a point without telling a story, and never tell a story without making a point. Did you get that? Make a point without telling a story, and never tell a story without making a point. What does that mean? Some of us, like me, guys, we tend to be like this. We're the facts and the figures guy. We don't care about story. Like, we don't want to know context. But it's important as a communicator that we do give story, we do give embellishment, we do give more support, because that's what anchors the point into the heart. Okay. So if I'm going to make a point, I don't just want to be the clear eyes professor guy and just give like one, two, three, this is what it is, good luck. I want to give some more supporting stuff, even better, a personal story, right? Or at least more description and an example. Okay. For those on the other side where you feel like you're always in a story and then you're like, or maybe you know somebody, you're like, what was the point of that story? Have you guys been around people like that? Don't point them out. Where they're just like, you're like, they keep on talking. And I don't know what they're trying to say, but I think they forgot, you know? Why? Because that person, and I've fallen victim to this before too, that person is in the story, but they're not making a point. They're just talking. But if you want to be an effective, compelling speaker, your goal of telling a story must be anchored with a point. So always think to yourself when you find yourself in the middle of a story, why am I telling this? What point am I trying to emphasize? If you don't know, then don't tell the story. Why is this important? You know what also makes an effective communicator is somebody that you can tell respects their time. See, I just think to myself all the time, to have your ear for even 1 minute these days is an extreme honor because your time is your life. So I want to make sure that whenever I deliver anything, it is impactful, it is effective, it is what you need. So if I run off on a whole big story and a big tangent and I don't tie it back in, I get mad for you because you're like, that was like 5 minutes of my life that I'm never going to get back. And I just don't know what I was supposed to do with that. So have that in your heart that become impactful because you do have their attention. And I don't want to take advantage of that. All right. If you're still with me, put I'm with you in the comments below. And I'm going to wrap up with the fifth point here. Okay. So let me recap so far. We have our format. We have a hook. We have a promise. We have a story. We have outlining your points, at least 3. And then finally, a call to action. Okay. Put the letters CTA in the comments below. CTA, if you're jotting down notes. Call to action. You can have an incredible story. You can have an incredible presentation. You could have had the most perfect title. But at the end of the day, if we do not lead out with an action people can take, then we miss the whole point of the presentation. Remember, in the beginning, we set down our end result and our objective. Our objective is not just to entertain necessarily. Our objective is not just to sound good. I don't want to look good. That's not my goal. Effective speaking is about your end person and how do you transform and impact their life. Well, you have to give them a clear call to action. What do they need to do now with your information? So, what do you do in a call to action? A couple steps in here. I would recap your topic. This is why it's also helpful to have an outline. Did you notice I'm just recapping my outline with you so you remember and it encapsulates it for you? So, for example, as we get into this last point, remember if you follow this foolproof presentation formula, which encapsulates a couple things. First, you have to know your title, you have to know your audience, and you have to know your end result. Then you outline your topic, 5 points there. You have a hook, a story, a promise, your actual main points, and a call to action. If you have this formula down together, these 8 points, you will be able to be better than 95% of speakers out there. You will make sales, you will convert prospects, you will be asked to train and to speak multiple times because you do things a certain way. Okay. So you see, that's an example of a call to action. I summarized my points. But also, remember, I mentioned there was that heart, head, hand, heart formula. The most powerful speeches, presentations, conversations end one more time with pulling at the heartstrings. And one of the best ways to do that is to end with a story. End with a story. Start with a story, end with a story. So, what's a story that I can utilize here? So many. I'll give you a story of how when I finally knew that I became a good speaker, speaking, like I mentioned in the beginning, was something that I wanted to master. I struggled for so long. It took me a year and a half to figure out how to use my eyebrows to actually have facial expressions. But every time I remember, I would review the tapes if there was a presentation that was recorded. I would ask for feedback from my mentors, which I didn't like. I don't like constructive criticism. But I would do this with the people that I wanted to know the most. And what happened was there was a time, one of my speaking mentors, her name is Deanna. Shout out to Deanna. She's a professional speaker. Amazing, captivating, incredible. I had the opportunity to co-host an event with her. There's 200 people in the audience. I had the mic up and everything. It was really fun. And at the end, I decided to go up to her for constructive feedback one more time. And I'm like, Deanna, I'd love to hear, like, what do you think about my speaking ability? And you know what she said in floored me? She said, James, you're one of the most fantastic speakers that I've seen. I'm like, wait, what? Really? It's kind of like that feeling of you graduated, you made it. And I just had this swelling of emotion because I realized the journey that it was. But I was emotional because I knew now that I had a skill that could uncap my ability to impact other people in amazing, moving ways. And it was so freeing because just that stamp of approval, I'm just like, wow, okay. Well, now I could do anything. I could talk to anywhere. And from then on, I've just seen over and over and over and over again. I love speaking. Why? Because I love the end result of the audience. I love it when you message me saying, wow, James, it just hit. I can't believe that just helped me break through. The most powerful and the most addicting feeling in the world is the addicting of you being able to transform someone's life and they come up and thank you. I don't do it for the money or anything like that. That'll all come. But I do it because I know that something clicked, something shifted for you, there was an epiphany. And that is powerful. All right. So, with that said, there's an example of a call to action ending with a story. So, I hope this was interesting. This might be one you might want to review. This might be one you might want to bring some teammates together on this. I'm curious who here is committed to taking this formula and giving it a shot. Put a me in the comments below. With your next opportunity, maybe you have a testimonial you're going to have, or maybe you're going to do a Facebook Live. That's what I do. To get better, I just do it every single day. You're going to suck before you get good, by the way. So try it. Give it a shot. Let us know. I'd love to hear your feedback on it. And I believe that if you take these and you run with it, you too will become a captivating, compelling speaker that people are going to look to one day too. And they're like, wow, you're one of the most powerful speakers that are out there as well too. All right. So if this was helpful, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube yet, please do that. I also have a free course on how to win in business God's way, succeed in business God's way. Go to my website, jamesczang.com, for this plus a lot more cool things as well too. On that, hope this was fun. God bless. Talk soon. Bye-bye.